Alright, so we're going to get into um, a little bit of magic right now. And I'm working on my editing skills too. Well, let me just teach you a little bit about sigils and me and magic.
Hello, my darlings, and welcome. Today, I'd like to show you how I create a sigil. Let's do some magical crafting. A sigil is your intention condensed into a single symbol of your own creation. They're amazingly useful types of magic because unless you reveal their meaning, they're secret and known only to the maker. They're imbued with your unique intention and outsiders cannot read them, allowing the magical intention to remain a secret as the universe works to align and deliver the result. This gives the sigil its power. There are several ways to make a
The laws of attraction.
sigil, and I'll make more videos on this topic in the future. This is only one method.
Numerology.
Your sigil does not have to follow this recipe if you have a way to create them that speaks to you more. When I start a sigil, I create a matrix of numbers and letters. You can choose any number across. In this example, I've chosen 8. Then I fill in the alphabet from left to right. Next, I create a shape with the same number of points or areas as the numbers in the letter matrix. It's common to create a circle or square. I've made a circle with 8 pieces, spaced slightly apart. When I number each section, I go in order, but you can do this numerically or randomly, whatever you like. Next is your magical intention. I write this out as a positive sentence or phrase. You can also create a sigil to represent you personally, almost a magical signature. You can create a sigil for a specific purpose, such as creating a symbol that represents a phrase of power. Sigils are great for release magic, banishing, abundance, any intentions in spellcraft. I've chosen a simple affirmation for the example in this video. I am beautiful, I love myself. Next, I extracted the consonants and excluded the vowels. If a consonant is repeated, I use it only one time. Then go to the original number matrix and assign a number to each letter. Here is where the sigil comes to life. Take these numbers and bring them to the shape you created. I placed a point on each number in the order the numbers appeared and drew curved lines in between. You can do this whatever way feels best to you. I love that my sigil came out with lots of curves and almost echoed a heart shape. But you could have lots of swirls or straight lines and corners. Every sigil will come out looking different. This is what makes them unique to each individual. Now that your sigil is complete, meditate on it, activate it, and accept its effects into your life. This can be like a one-time use sigil, or you may wish to use it repeatedly. To activate the sigil, you may wish to trace it onto paper, meditate on it, and burn it. Or you may also wish to draw or carve the sigil into a candle for use in candle magic. Or if it represents you personally, you can use it to sign your magical writings. Once you've activated your sigil, in the coming days you'll start to see little things that are reminiscent of the sigil you activated. The more open you are to these messages, the faster the magic will come into effect.
What this comes down to is all it does is it creates more awareness. And so it seems like we're actually having magical experiences, but it's actually just awareness that's occurring. And so we notice these things more in our day to day life because that's where our intentions are focused. It's on this one spell, this one craft, this one. We want. You know, what she say, like love and happiness or something like that, something similar. And I actually see a pair of lips with the X across them, because it's like secret love. Maybe she's supposed to have an affair or something like that. Um, or maybe it's supposed to be taboo, or maybe it's supposed to, just be unconventional in some sort of way. Um, so that's the thing, is that being able to uh, put a in a it doesn't actually change anything besides our own minds. And the thing is that if we get others to change their minds with our way of thinking, then that's mind manipulation, and that's being able to use your skills for their either the greater good or the greater bad. Because manipulating people, well, I don't believe in deception and such, as I previously discussed in a video that we'll be following this, because I just figured to make a whole new one, or make a part two. But it's and that's why I always try to inform people, like, of their strengths or qualities and things like that, because it's they need to put their focus on those attributes of themselves. And the thing, I try to be a cheerleader. It's not easy to be empathetic and nurturing. Like, those are two things that I severely lack any skills on. But I just do my best, and I get hurt in the process, because, But at least I'm trying to help others. While I get hurt, and I don't intentionally hurt other people. I may do it, but and maybe I have done it. I can't, think of a lot off the top of my head, because I've been in a lot of self pity, because I take a lot of abuse. Just because I want, I don't want to think I'm such a bad person. I overly compensate, because I'm afraid of people thinking I'm a bad person. And the thing is, I always come out looking like a bad person. And so maybe I should just put my effort into being a bad person. And the thing is that me being a bad person isn't really a bad person. It's just, if there's good, there's bad. It's just a positive and a negative. How does one want to, illustrate those values is up to them. And the thing is that the creation, because it's one-on-one, that's easy. But when there's people involved, then it becomes like, who has the better spellings? It's better spells, the better words, because words are spells.
It's important, however, to note that your decisions play a hugely important part in how effective the sigil will be. If your sigil is about an intent and you do not put any action behind your desire, it cannot happen. Don't count on the sigil to do the work for you. Open your heart and mind and let it empower you to execute on the intention.
Incomplete, we be that most incredible soldier from underground. See how easy they all fall down. dig into the core to see the light. Let's get out of here, baby. That's the way to survive. Y'all top off the head. I'm on the set. Do the impossible. You wanna bet, cause a lot of things change. We be waiting in vain. If we wanna get by, no pain, no gain. Wow, Vicky's wanna test me again. Sorry, my rhyme's gonna stunt your brain, yo. I'm so stormy for the straight up skill. We gonna make it happen with a crazy rap skill. Get ready to rumble. Now be the time, if you ain't know, now you know. Good luck, Phyllis. Do the impossible, see the invisible. Roll, fight the power. Untouchable, break the unbreakable. Roll, fight the power. What you gonna do is what you wanna do. Just break the rule, then you see the truth. It's in the beat, cheap, baby. Roll, fight the power. Second verse dedicates to the real peeps. All we gotta say is so real thing, cause revolution ain't never gonna televise. Kick it a map, whoa, microphone phenotype. Open it third eye, see into the overground. I'm about to hit you with a scream from the underground. Whole city's covered with a cyber flavor disease in your area, but not with the top picture. Do the impossible, see the invisible. Roll, fight the power. Hush the untouchable, break the unbreakable. Roll, fight the power. What you gonna do is what you wanna do. Just break the rule, then you see the truth. It's in the beat, cheap, baby. Roll, fight the power. Impossible, see the invisible. Roll, fight the power. Hush the untouchable, break the unbreakable. Roll, fight the power. What you gonna do is what you wanna do. Just break the rule, then you see the truth. It's in the beat, cheap, baby. Roll, fight the power. Impossible, see the invisible.
Alright YouTube, I promised a video upon memetics, so this is the next occult video, sort of the in an evolutionary manner. Now, I have spoken before about how evolution generally accepted, the process of natural selection especially, operates upon the spiritual, it operates upon language, it operates upon basically everything. We are subjugated to natural selection, which is why I'm a capitalist as well, by the way. Every human endeavor works best when it is subjugated to the general concept of selection. There's a little bit of wiggle for letting people die in the streets or whatever. But generally speaking, human systems, human understanding, human anything works basically with the same basis. Memetics is no exception. It is a modern-day secular explanation for principles that were already kind of understood, and in the sense of chemistry versus alchemy, that were already understood in ancient times, that were understood long ago. The concept of the transfer of information works upon the occult in the following manner. If two people don't speak the same language, and one person is speaking, the other person can't understand it at all, they may be able to derive intonation from that. They may be able to understand the emotions of the other person speaking based upon the gestures that they're using, the tone that they're using, with exceptions. In some cases, you'd have a culture where speaking loudly and what we would consider angrily would be a type of speech that actually means the.
If we are to shift the burden of responsibility for our lives from the government to ourselves, we must know why it's right to do so. We must support capitalism with a moral system, one fit for human beings on earth. Rational egoism. Richard G. Brooke.
Person's happy, or the person is praising you, or something like that. That can happen. Generally speaking, though, if we're talking about any of the European diaspora languages, or something that's been influenced by a European culture, the emotion, the intonation, the tone, and so forth will be similar, as opposed to the Asian branch of languages and gestures and so forth, or Africa, or something like that. You may be able to derive that, but you can't derive the central core meaning because you don't understand what's being said. We're going to assume that these two languages are different enough so that, it's not like English and French or English and Spanish where you might understand the occasional word and get kind of the gist of what's being said. We're going to assume that we're talking about somebody who speaks Finnish and somebody who speaks English English or something like that. You have no idea what they're saying in either direction. You can't derive really a mental picture or an idea or anything significant from that. In the concept of memetics, it works a little bit differently. We're all probably familiar with Spudro Sparda or something like that, which is sort of the Finnish perversion of pedo bear, one of these earlier meme images. People spread it around because they find it amusing or cute, or they're just confused by it and they say, well, what the fuck is this? I think I'll share it. And this idea then spreads around. It is no longer even reliant upon human communication. You may have no idea what it's talking about. You may not even get the context of the actual visual representation of the words that may or may not even be there. You're spreading it around for some other reason. It can stand in for emotion. It can stand in for anything. Within the occult, you have something similar. The process at work is this. It relies upon human understanding, much like these memetics relies upon the translation of meaning in some way, shape, or form. Again, not necessarily the understanding of the language used. The occult, as far as the pre-modern psychological explanation goes, can work if it is witnessed and the other person believes in it at least a little bit. For instance, if I conduct a dark ritual of cursing and direct it at another person and the other person is aware of it and they believe in such material, their behavior may be altered because they have witnessed that curse going on. That is, you don't need a mystical mumbo-jumbo explanation as for why it works. You can believe in that if you want, but you don't actually even need that explanation. An entirely secular rationalization of any change in their behavior, maybe they do destroy themselves, maybe they commit suicide or something, would be that their emotions, their behaviors were affected by the same ritual. Going back further, you would have the concept of as above, so below. Well, at the same time, as below, so above. The two become twain. Therefore, you can look at human understanding, at human endeavors, at the natural world, including natural selection, and put it upon the cosmic plane and begin to make explanations thereof. And this is one of the primary concepts within the modern occult movements. It goes back to the Renaissance, and in fact may go back far further, depending on who you choose to believe on the subject. But it is there. It is there, and it's a very potent belief system within the occult.
Styx is like one of the best commentators, and well, I feel offended for calling him a comment, or I feel like I offended him by calling him a commentator, because I don't feel like he's a commentator. He's a very well aware man who speaks with elegance and wit, with extreme humility. I really look up to Styx, to be honest with you. He's a more civil version of myself. He's the me that I wish I was, to be honest with you.
We also have to understand something I don't.
Unfortunately, I do things differently. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. These are my choices, and basically what I'm saying is that it's not that I envy him, Styx, because he was able to get through the college system. He was able to play ball better. He's better able to be handle institutions than myself. That's why I have a respect for him, because that's something that I severely lack. And at the same time, I believe that my roguelike spirit and things of that nature would he'd appreciate that as well. The thing is that I respect this man a tremendous amount, because he genuinely cares and he's not trying to make a profit. He's not trying to capitalize. Like he's, I don't want to say he's not trying to he has his own belief system that works for him, and he has made his life just like I have made my life with my way. And the thing is, I'm trying to, gain more, but I've got to handle myself, and um, so there's a lot of similarities, just like he said, the stick said, uh, as above, so below as above, and there's that middle ground, and that's where we meet here on this middle ground known as the internet, which is why we need to protect it.
Think many secular proponents of the academic study of the occult understand, is that these should be seen in the same way as modern science is broken down into various theories and explanations, different schools of thought, and so forth. The occult should be broken down into the same. Now, many people just say, well, it's the occult. Now, I do that because I study all of these different branches from both an academic and sometimes practicing standpoint. But it would be inappropriate to conflate any of these two groups, or necessarily two books, or two figures within what we would consider the occult at large, necessarily as having anything to do with one another. You take some Chinese mystic and then you take some Renaissance-era European alchemist and compare notes across the two. They're not necessarily coming to the same conclusion because they have such a vastly different background. Back to memetics, though. The transfer of information in a viral form based upon the theory of evolution, I happen to be a proponent of believing that this is true. We can see it. We can observe it. In fact, it gives evidence for biological selection because it works so well in biological systems, at least within man, you would think. You put an image on the internet or somewhere else, propaganda image, you would think of a poster or something like that, and all of a sudden it starts being spread around in what we would consider a viral fashion. It's replicating itself. Our minds are biological instruments. Our minds are almost a life force unto themselves that simply is using the rest of our biological form to sustain its own capabilities and functions. Now, really, when it boils down to it, all we are is a brain with a survival suit attached to it. That's really what we are. All of our thoughts.
Dude, I've never watched this before, but I always say that freaking, the reason why aliens always look the same way is because they're wearing a uniform, just like we go into space. We, have this, suit that protects us, and provides, but, and so that's why freaking all the things look the same, because in space we would all look the same because we're in a suit. And, and that's the thing is that, we've got these minds and we got these flesh suits.
Thoughts and dreams and everything else, that's all brain activity. Everything else that goes on in our body, our heartbeat, our sexual reproduction and so forth, is really secondary. That, the reproductive faculties are the only other prime function that we happen to serve. Oftentimes people talk about, well, the other purpose is survival. Yes, but that's the brain's survival is what matters. The rest of the body gaining sustenance. It's only gaining sustenance to keep the brain alive, to keep the rest of the body in top form so that it can continue to allow the brain to survive and allow the brain to reproduce its own way, its own biological capabilities through reproduction. I know for some lower life form you would think, well, the sexual takes primacy because there's not a lot going on in the brain. You would think of an ant colony or something like that. Yes, but it's still the mental function that's allowing all of that to happen. The organization you're seeing is still a mental function of sorts, even if it's just primitive instinct, really.
And what I can say with that is, look at a city. Like we're all cells, and we have this thing called civilization, this life form. And, there's constant heartbeat, but it goes to sleep at night. It slows down at night, just like us, humans. Even a lot of animals. Yes, there's a lot more going on during the day. And That's why, there's a lot of these, a lot more species out there and such, that are um, daytimers, non-nocturnal, you know, but there's still nocturnal forces out there that lurk and uh, keep this world, going on. These are life forms. And sorry, I kind of lost myself there, like trying to overly explain freaking something simple. There's these other, well, cities, in the mornings, there's all this blood pressure, all the arteries are clogged. That's why we have traffic jams, because people are trying to get into the nucleus of a cell, to reproduce. And that's everything is a fractal. Like that's basically what it comes down to. And at night, evening time, there's a rush. Like there's not this constant flow. That, and that's where we're being irresponsible with technologies. Is that we should start relying more on renewable sources that use direct sunlight to fuel us during the day with uh, um, reserves of petroleum and such, carbon, hydrocarbons, coal. That's not hydrocarbon, that's just, pure carbon. And, so we can offset the allowance. But at nighttime, we should try to store that sunlight and then use the fossil fuels as a reserve as well. And but the thing is, because all of fossil fuels are hydrocarbon, like oil and coal and such, natural gases, that's stored sunlight. That's like a battery. And so to better manage ourselves is, we try to harness the energy during the day, and we back it up with our fossil fuels until we have the technology to do this a lot better. But this is a gear that we must go into, and I don't know, I forgot what I was going on about that.
With memetics, though, we can look to several modern cases. We can look to Ebola, Chan, or Keck, which is going around on 4chan still and elsewhere. We can look to these things and we can say that the religious has evolved as well in accordance with natural selection. Memetics, in the sense of the modern, that is on the internet especially, with the information age, is aiding this process. It's sped it up. The information age has sped up the evolutionary process of man probably 100 or 1,000 times, because it allows for ideas which then govern biological behaviors to be spread more quickly. And this has an effect upon the occult. I remarked years ago, and put this down in the introduction of Fruits of Eden as well. For those who are interested, you can look that up. I remarked there that the occult was undergoing a renaissance specifically because of the information age, because arcane material that formerly, there was a copy in this library, or maybe if you were lucky, if you were in an urban area, you might have some little alleyway bookstore where you might be able to occasionally pick up some limited edition of an occult work. That era is gone. Now you can get it all online. You can order it from Amazon. You can get antique copies, vintage copies from eBay. You can self-publish your own occult thoughts there. It's a massive proliferation of philosophy and how-to material, as well as the rediscovery in an almost early colonial era sense of some of the ancient. We would think of the only prior era comparable to this being the Napoleonic era, when the armies of the Europeans, especially of Napoleon, were marching across areas of the Old World, the Middle East, North Africa. they were pulling in a great deal of the Rosetta Stone was found at this time. They were pulling in a great deal of archaeological material. They were interested in excavating tombs. They were interested in exploring ruins. They were interested in transcribing documents and doing things like that. What it led to was the birth, almost, of the modern age. We would think it starts in the Enlightenment, but we're talking about basically the same period. It was also requisite upon a human understanding of the ancient. Now, the Europeans were entirely focused on, well, how can we find the Holy Grail? How can we find the Ark of the Covenant? How can we, find the body of Judas or something like that. They're thinking in biblical terms. That's really what they were most interested in. But all of these other ancient cultures associated with those same stories, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Babylonians, and
And that's the thing, is that there's many interpretations of the Bible.
so forth, they were interested in
Just like there's many dimensions of life.
them too. They wanted to find information there as well. That's how they found all of these relics that have formed the backbone of most modern study of archaeology anywhere near that region. It was evolutionary in form. It sped up the human understanding of everything. It sped up the human understanding of linguistics with these language systems being able to be decoded. It sped up human behavior as older philosophies were then synthesized into new philosophies by people who were capable, again, of spreading them in an evolutionary manner, almost having sex with philosophy and then giving birth to various offspring. You can think of it in a sexual manner.
Sapiophiles.
I don't say that jokingly. You can think of it in terms of reproduction. Somebody capable in that same manner of synthesizing ancient material with new material, or taking ancient material that hadn't been
The old, which is a negative value, with the present, which is a positive value, can create a future value. And the way to represent that, actually, hold on, let me, and the way to represent that is, that's, we're just going to say old, right? And then we're going to say this is new. And when you add them together, this is future.
by anyone for 500-600 years and re-releasing it gives birth in a way to new philosophies. Other people then take it and synthesize it further. They analyze it.
Old plus new equals 0. That's creation. Only numbers that matter. Why do I say that? Because 2 is a representation of, or actually, hold on, equals right? Freaking 4 equals 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Or I can just say 4. Between 1 through 0, there's infinite ranges. And so, in order to be more precise, we have different values of 1. in order to create a solution.
They absorb it, they synthesize it with other material that they happen to choose, they reanalyze it from different fields, from linguistic study, from archaeology, from...
With that being said, God, we can't say, we'll give him a negative one, but he created man in his image, and so we're going to say +1. And well, Jesus made it both man and God, right? Just to make certain that there's a division, that it's made of two things. And then you've got -1 +1 +1 negative. Oops. -1. And that's -1. This is that's going this way. And so the thing is, when you add all these ones up, you get 1, 0, and that's XY axis, right? There's multiple dimensions to the Bible, people.
The perspective of the biblical, from the perspective of any other religious philosophical school, it's evolution in action. And in the information age, it's a massively, massively faster than it was in the prior age, which, again, it's sort of built on the backbone of the Enlightenment. And before that, the prior era, which was already faster than it had been for 1,000 years, was built upon the printing press, essentially. Before that, you have 1,000 years of literal darkness in which most people didn't have access to any of this information. That's why technology moved ahead so slowly. Only a small proportion of the population was literate. They preserved documents, they copied documents, they analyzed documents to an extent, but few of them were actually literate. Only a small proportion of the population's overall mental processing capability was at work doing so. Essentially, a handful of nobles, some monks, and that was basically it. You have to wait until Charlemagne
and that's the thing, is knowledge is power, and they kept people out of power, because they deprived them of information. And the thing is that people got too powerful because of the internet. And well, yeah, the internet is a whole different thing and stuff, but like we came out of the Dark Ages. We had the Enlightenment because of the printing press, which is basically a form of computing and such. It was a machine that, it was a very manual. You had to push in your own keys. They're all digits. The letters and such, and so you had to get things right. Or make sense. Because they were inked and then they were pressed, and that's the printing press. They went on parchments and things, but that made it was the 99 Thesis by Martin Luther, and that translated the Bible from Latin to German, and went against the church because the church was keeping people. Church is another form of government, and they were keeping people to prods, and they were using God as their excuse because oh my, and like. See, this is what happens when you do not respect the king, and you had all these floods and washed away your fruits, and now you're all famished for the winter, and you must survive. And so it creates a freaking, and that's what people, you want to go back into those days? Freaking, it's been so freaking romanticized that it's atrocious. I'd much rather be alive today than in yesteryear. I have very bad vision. If I didn't have freaking, corrective lenses, freaking, my life would be freaking, I don't know what my life would be.
until you find a ruler who isn't functionally illiterate. For a long time, it was a very small proportion of an already decreased population really studying anything, really capable of writing their own name. Things move slowly between the fall of Rome, outside of parts of the Byzantine Empire, really. Things move very slowly in most of the Western world, not so much parts of Asia, which helped them get ahead and emerge out of the Copper Age and form their own empires. Things move very slowly until, again, the printing press era. All of a sudden, literacy begins to jump up. Then you have the Enlightenment, it jumps up further. Then you have sort of, very shortly thereafter, the rediscovery of much of this old stuff. And then you have really an appreciation for the modern educational structure. And now in most Western nations, literacy approaches 100%. Most people now in the Western world are hooked up to the internet. And some people still have primitive dial-up, but let's face it, it's still better than nothing. They have the ability to obtain documents, in many cases for free, on the internet. Literally tens of thousands of...
What wins wars? Information. That's why the North won the Civil Wars, because freaking the telegraph. Their ability for information to travel. And they also have the railroads. And so they're able to, a better chance for supplies and, to the troops because they have better information. And so they're able to quickly reinforce
ancient documents. The amount of analysis and synthesis that goes on is far more prevalent now. And the theory of memetics probably wouldn't have come about at all if not for the information age.
The American Civil War was actually the first industrial war.
Concept that ideas operated on an evolutionary principle would have been foreign to people who said, no, well, ideas come from like books. They come from these pieces of dead tree. They didn't really have an electronic system. Yes, the internet was technically already born quite a few decades ago, but did you have it in your home? No, probably not until the 1990s. For many of us, not until the 2000s. You're really thinking we're still in our infancy as far as the social media age, and we're not far out of infancy and into adolescence when it comes to really the home internet. Before that, it's basically academic institution and you're using email, and that's basically all you have before maybe 1992 to 1995. That's not that long ago. On a human scale, it's the blink of an eye. In fact, it's not even the blink of an eye. It's such a short period of time on a human scale that the message from the brain to the eye to blink is only halfway there in that very short period of a few decades. As far as memetics go, though,
you see why I love this guy? It reminds me of myself.
Far as occult-themed memes go, I would say this. Yes, the spread of pagan or occult ideas or powers, insofar as they're able to be psychologically translated by people witnessing them, is very real. When you sort of fuck people's minds up by taking the name of a pagan deity now rediscovered by the internet community at large and put it on sad frog Pepe meme and call it keck, yes, that affects people's behavior. And to say that it does not indicate, oh, well, yeah, these are a bunch of bored neckbeards that are just circle jerking each other and pretending to worship some ancient Egyptian deity. No, what this is an authentic pagan force that used to be venerated as very real. There were probably all sorts of prayers and psalms written to this specific being. You have just successfully, in the manner of Napoleon's forces digging the Rosetta Stone out of a sandbank, you have just done the same thing and rediscovered an entire ancient tradition. Now, you don't have access to the original prayers and songs and stuff like that, but if you assume that there's any validity at all to the original figure being worshipped, it shouldn't fucking matter, because people used to consider that figure very much real, physically, tangibly there in the sky, or in a cave, or in a lake somewhere. And you're now venerating it, at least psychologically. This has an effect upon the world. Even if that effect is to cause onlookers to think you're a lunatic, At the very least, it's going to alter their behavior. Now all of a sudden they're worried about a cult of Kek worshippers or something. Ebola-chan, what is it? It's an anime figure. It's a fucking sexualized cartoon that deals with an epidemic in Africa. And yet it's spread around very, very successfully in an
Just like Pornhub and their quarantine fucking editions.
evolutionary manner. For some reason,
And seriously, fucking Rick and Morty. Hey, I do like Focus. Like that's my niche, my porn. I'll admit that here. Like friggin' Focus is pretty damn hot. Hey, I'm an orphan. What do you expect?
possibly because of the cuteness factor, possibly because people were saying, oh, I hope this is the end of the world because life is so fucking miserable. It spread around everywhere. It spread around the entire world. It was on Nigerian forums. It was, on African forums. It was in the West. Japanese people were talking about it. It successfully, in a very short time, replicated itself to millions of minds. All it was a cartoon. And now it has a whole storyline attached to it almost, with many thousands of images and fan fiction and everything else. This is another thing. The sort of fan fiction side of literature is akin to the occult in a way. Because the people taking these pagan names, think Nurgle during the same Ebola outbreak, or again, Kek, or Lucifer, or any of these other figures or names, the people discussing them oftentimes themselves do not have a full understanding of sort of what you would consider canonical materials behind them. But it does not matter. Over time, Satan has been transformed dozens of times. Over the last 2,000 years, Satan went from primarily a misunderstood sort of trickster being from Judaism, a little demon, like an imp or something like that, to a
Hi, my name is Matt.
Giant in the sort of Dante era, to a dragon, a winged serpent, and that was what it was, sort of.
Hi, my name is Matt. I'm at college.
In ancient lore, in the more authentic, original Christianized sense, but it went back to being sort of the dragon, then became a romantic figure, sort of the fallen rebel who was kind of a good guy, then became the face of corporate America or the corporate Western world. Satan has been used to represent every leader that people don't happen to like. Kim Jong-un is Satan, Putin is Satan, Bush was Satan, Reagan was Satan, Obama's Satan, the Pope is Satan. Everyone's Satan. If you don't like someone, either call them Satan or Hitler. Hitler, by the way, is subject to the same natural selective forces. Over time, the canon becomes far less important. The original philosophy is all but forgotten.
He's not a Hitler sympathizer. He's a friggin', he understands. Just like understands Hitler. He was a World War I veteran. The reason why he has this mustache is because friggin' he almost died because freaking his mustache broke the gasket of his gas mask. And so freaking that's why Hitler freaking shaved, right before his nose.
Nobody really knows anything about the original Judaistic Satan, so-called. What they think they know about is one of these many incarnations of this same being. They've all been spawned as thought forms within the human consciousness, and they spread around in an evolutionary manner. It becomes part of human philosophy. This affects the actions, the beliefs, and the thoughts of people from this generation who are in positions of power, and in the next generation of people who will be in positions of power. The next 5 or 6 presidents from now, many decades in the future, the person is probably alive today. They might be some total nobody right now. They are currently learning about this and many other beings, and it doesn't matter if they know anything whatsoever about the original canon. It's like with Trump. I'll point out an example from literally yesterday. Trump talking about General Pershing and the pig's blood bullets. This has entered the consciousness of people and has since 9/11. The concept that General Pershing dipped bullets in pig's blood, killed 49 of 50 Islamic jihadist prisoners that he had at the time, let the last one go. The other one told everybody what had happened, and they didn't have a problem with Islamists anymore. This story may or may not be true. There's no specific evidence that this ever happened. It appears to be a construed report of a different general who used to bury the dead Islamic jihadists with pig corpses in order to keep them from being disinterred and sort of, I guess, ritualistically bathed or something.
Oops. Hold on.
At least one Muslim at the time was beheaded and the head buried in a pig skin. And this was just a form of disrespect. It didn't actually cause enough fear to cause them to stop attacking. Although
What I think probably happens is fan fiction, and someone actually did it, and someone embellished it, and and because I've seen that, and I feel that from just my time in service. Like, I was blown up numerous times and shit. And the thing is that I've never used my time in service as an excuse, for my problems and stuff. It's always been, my time in service has always been used against me. I've never used my time in service to get out of trouble, aside from marijuana.
Probably pissed them off quite a bit. It was really the military machine at large that ground down the people fighting. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that this story may not be true. There's a possibility that it is, I'll admit that. But in all likelihood, the story is probably...
You see those golden arches? That's sigil magic.
If a myth spreads quickly enough, the truth no longer matters because it's no longer true.
How many times have I freaking said that? If enough people believe a lie, it becomes the truth.
The human consciousness. Now, I'm not faulting him for repeating this story because, again, he probably thought this was a true story a decade ago. You can't really fault him or anybody who believes in the story for believing in it because, again, the fact-checking wasn't there until long after it had already spread. I think I remember hearing about it on Fox News around like 2002 or something. I'm pretty sure they ran a story where they had some military advisor saying exactly the same story. So at that time, half the population was already indoctrinated into this meme. This is how propaganda operates, by the way. You preempt the truth with an emotional lie that is sure to spread very quickly.
Frame it. That's what politicians do, is they frame, like, if they're going to be accused of something, they speak about it before it becomes public.
Something very powerful. The burning of the Reichstag.
Frame it.
Commies did it. Oh, commies probably did it. Well, by the time it looked like maybe the commies didn't do it, everyone already thought the commies had done it. 9/11. Why do you think they came out immediately and started blaming somebody who may not have been involved and then redacted the report on the same?
People in fucking caves did that.
Probably to protect the Saudi Arabians because they were terrified about losing oil interests. Anything like this. The story of Christianity. The story of Christianity is a myth. Jesus never existed, at least in the form that the Bible suggests. Maybe there was some central figure there, but we know. Look at the things that are claimed there. They're obviously not true. Jesus never walked on water. He didn't turn, a dozen fish into 1,000 fish. He didn't feed thousands of people with one loaf of bread. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. It's completely impossible. It's a myth. It's a myth. It's a lie. But people had already spread.
It's actually the truth. And the reason why it's the truth is because the Son is Jesus. Because God is the answer to the unknown, and space is the unknown. Friggin' matter, planets. That's why we, suns, how can they create and destroy? Supernovas. We're all stardust. So, where's the first man and where's the first God? And that's what we need to actually start figuring out. Because we're all made of, up of atom. And atom, atom. These things have very strong values to them. Excuse me. They have very strong values to them. And that's what people need to understand is that in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. In the beginning of time, heaven, space, earth, matter. You know, like, if you actually look at the story of Jesus, it revolves essentially around the Son. And the whole thing about the Bible is that it is multidimensional. Like, as many times as one reads it, like they're able to understand different levels of it, and that it goes into Tesla and how he got a lot of his information from the Bible. There's different dimensions to it, and I mathematically proven Jesus. Because, well, like I said, -1, that's God. And then this is man because he created man in his image. Well, Jesus made both man and God. And when he put, zero, when he graphed it, zero rests right on the cross. X, Y, Z. Oops. X. Upside down Y. Friend. Okay, I didn't. This goes too much. But Jesus was nailed to the cross. It was, crucified on the cross, and he was nailed to it. The Z, and that makes a 3D shape. That's a sphere. All right.
Spread it around, especially during the Dark Ages. And so now you've got an uphill battle trying to convince people, even though it's so fantastic and so obviously not true, that it isn't true. It's an uphill battle. In fact, the only way really to displace it is to displace it with another meme, with another emotional kernel of information that replaces it. It overwrites it in the sort of manner that a computer will. This is why I endorse Satanism.
And computers and alien technology. The power of the internet. There's good out there that goes into part 1 of this little series. Yeah, this is just a very crazy freaking 2-part video, but silica, like aliens are among us.
Kernel of information that replaces it. It overwrites it in the sort of manner that a computer will. This is why I endorse Satanism. It prescribes a method by which this can be done, even if I'm no longer myself a Satanist, having already gone through that deprogramming. It's a manner of erasing the old incorrect information and substituting something else that simply evolutionarily works better. I see Christianity as holding people back, but there's no doubt in my mind or anybody else's that certainly the central myth spread very quickly, and it still spreads easily today. And it's a testament to its ability to replicate. It doesn't mean it's true. It simply means that it is emotional and it fits many scenarios and can be translated many ways according to what people happen to want to translate it as. And so it spreads easily. It's memetics. It's the spread of the idea. It doesn't even need a viral image on the internet to spread. The organized religion operates this way. The occult operates this way. Language, everything. Everything in this biological world, every piece of the biological world is subjugated to natural selection. Everything that you do in your life, everything that you believe, whether true or not, the foods you like, the foods you dislike, everything is part of natural selection. in some way, shape, or form. If you look at epigenetics, even a lot of these behavioral traits that don't directly code to DNA can be attributed to selective forces. Ideas are subjugated to the same. I know this is very dense, kind of rambling, and has a lot of slightly off-topic stuff, but there it is. It is a confusing
See, this is why I like him.
thing. Trying to draw the occult into memetics is theoretically easy, but actually explaining it in a way that can be understood is a little bit harder. You have to use examples. Again, picture that plane that you probably pictured earlier in this video, the red biplane. Or did I mention that when I tried to make the video before the webcam stalled out?
Holy shit, he had a fucking issue too. This is synchronicity. I've never watched this video before. God damn it. Because I had a friggin', I got distracted because I was like, just like in this video, friggin', there's going to be a cut because I got email notification because I'm using my phone.
I don't even know. Okay, well, we'll play a quick game here in case I don't quite remember if I already covered this or whether it was the failed last attempt to make this video. So, really quick here. Imagine in your head a red World War I era biplane, sort of like the Red Baron, only with 2 sets of wings instead of 3, sitting on a runway with a propeller in front and the little insignia on the side. Now stop. Did you visualize it in your head? Well, you just received a seemingly tangible image of something without me offering you anything tangible to look at, based solely upon what I said. I didn't give you an image to look at, I simply described something, and you saw it in your head. Many of you did anyway. Also part of
You got me there? What did y'all see? Put it in the comments.
this same capability. Now, no two people visualized exactly the same plane. It's an abstract thought, but it's still there. It's a thought form. Thought forms are important within this concept, but I'm going to leave it at that. I'm actually starting to get a little bit overheated sitting here in the sun, believe it or not. It's way warmer than it should be for this time of year. I'm not unhappy about that. That's about all. Peace out.
Friggin' thanks, Sticks. Friggin' I want to have a nice, I want to talk to you one day. I really do. But take care, be safe, be kind, stay strong. I love you all. And, thanks for putting up with my skank ass.